Before we dive into this story, I need you to pause for a moment. What if every family secret you thought was buried forever was waiting just beneath the surface to change everything you know about your life? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story. It's a journey into the heart of betrayal, love, and survival. Make sure you hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss a single twist. And if you've ever felt like there's something hidden in your own past, drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. I still remember the way the air felt that night, heavy, like it carried something sacred and forbidden. The old clock on the hallway wall ticked louder than usual, each second echoing in my chest as I walked toward her room. My grandmother's door was half open, and a faint, flickering light from her bedside lamp could see her silhouette sitting upright like a wow. Her hands folded on her lap, her rosary glinting under the dim glow. She wasn't praying. She was waiting for me. "Close the door," she said softly, her voice trembling, not from aid, but from fear. I obeyed without a word. The air inside that room smelled of lavender and dust, of time long gone. She looked smaller than usual, as if the years had finally caught
she
up
whispered,
to her, wrapping her in invisible
chains.
Her eyes didn't meet mine right away. I could tell she was somewhere else, trapped in a memory she didn't want to revisit. Then she turned to me and said the words that still haunt me. "Never repeat what you're about to hear." My chest tightened. I didn't understand why her voice shook like that, why her hands, usually so steady when braiding my hair, I thought she was sick, clutched the bed or maybe like dying. She was holding on to life itself. No sickness could explain. She opened the drawer of her nightstand and took out an envelope, yellowed by time, the paper thin and fragile, sealed with old wax. The edges were frayed, as if someone had opened it 100 times and tried to hide the evidence. "This," she said, "was never meant to be found." I remember the sound of my heartbeat. The wind brushed against the window, and somewhere a dog barked. Inside, the only thing that existed was her voice. She told me the letter had arrived in 1964, the year my grandfather disappeared for 3 days and came back with eyes that refused to meet hers. He told me he'd been working, she said, her voice breaking, but I knew that wasn't true. I watched my grandfather stood beside a woman I'd never seen, grainy, with sharp eyes and a smile that didn't reach them, and next to them, a child not my age. He told me she died, Grandma whispered, but she didn't. It felt like the room shifted, like the walls inhaled sharply with me. I couldn't speak. I didn't want to believe it. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Her gaze locked. The world cracked open in that moment, terrified. The house pleading for silence. "Your mother," the story, she said. Everything I thought I knew about my life twisted into something unrecognizable. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at her, shaking my head, refusing to let her words take root. "She made me promise," Grandma whispered, tears filling her eyes. "She made me promise never to tell you who she really was, or
but
what
I
she
can't
did.
carry it anymore.
She reached out. She said, her cold hand gripping
is heavier
mine,
than death.
her skin
I
paper
remember
thin
looking
and
down
trembling.
at that photograph again, the ink fading, the truth bleeding through. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the weight of generations pressing down on us. I didn't cry, not yet. I just stared at her, realizing that nothing, not love, not loyalty, not time, could survive for days after
like
that
night.
That was
Her
the
words
night
wouldn't
everything
leave
I
my
believed
mind.
about
Your
my
mother
family,
made me promise
about myself.
they echoed
began
between
to
every
die.
tick of the clock, between every prayer said before dinner, between the laughter that no longer felt real. I avoided her room, afraid that stepping inside would make the truth permanent. But the silence, oh, that silence was louder than any confession. I was 17 then, too young to understand the kind of pain that drives a woman to hide a child's past, yet old enough to feel the fracture inside me grow deeper with every passing day. Grandma pretended nothing had happened. Every morning, she brewed her coffee the same way, strong, black, and bitter. Every afternoon, she sat by the window, watching the world outside while I watched her, wondering what else she was keeping buried. I tried to ask about the letter, about the woman, about the child in the photograph, but she would only shake her head and whisper, "Some things are better left dead." I didn't understand then that she wasn't protecting me, she was protecting herself. The years that followed were a blur of obedience and quiet rebellion. I finished school, took a job at the old post office downtown, and saved every penny I could. Each letter that passed through my hands felt like a cruel reminder and echo of the one that had changed everything. I handled envelopes as if they were alive, as if one might suddenly whisper a secret meant for me. By 1978, I had collected enough to leave town, but every time I packed my suitcase, Grandma would find a way to stop me. Sometimes it was guilt. You can't leave me alone. Other times, not
It was
after
fear.
everything
The
I've
world
done
out
for
there
you doesn't care about people like us. And when neither worked, she'd fall silent, retreating into that haunted look that always made me stay. That was her weapon, silence. A manipulation so subtle, it didn't feel like control until I was already trapped. I told myself I stayed because I loved her, but love shouldn't feel like a chain. Years turned
The
into
same
decades.
floral wallpaper,
Grandma aged,
the same ticking
but the
clock,
house stayed
the
the
same
same
family
museum
portraits
of our smiling
secrets.
like they knew something I didn't. I cared for her day after day, even when her hands forgot how to hold a spoon, even when her voice turned to whispers that made no sense. But sometimes, late at night, she'd wake up crying, calling a name I didn't recognize. That name, Evelyn, it haunted me. She'd say it like a prayer. I finally over asked, and over, "Who is Evelyn?" Her eyes clouded with confusion. But for a brief second, I saw something spark recognition, guilt, pain. She tried to speak, but her lips trembled. "Not now," she whispered. "She's better off not knowing." I didn't realize she meant me. When she died in 1993, the house fell quiet in a way I'd never known.
I thought the silence
went
would
through
finally
her things
set me
one
free,
last
but
time.
instead, folding her
It
dresses
pressed down harder.
her rosaries,
The air smelled
her
like her
photo
perfume
albums,
and
old
that's
paper,
when I found it, tucked inside her Bible, between Psalms and Proverbs, was the same yellowed envelope, but this time there was something else, an address scribbled in faded blue ink. EM 142 Willow Creek. My heart stopped. Evelyn, I don't remember deciding to go. I just remember standing in front of the house a few hours later, peeling white paint, overgrown grass, and the faint smell of lilacs drifting from the porch. I knocked once, then twice. A woman opened the door. My eyes stared back at me. Neither of us spoke, but in that silence, I understood everything Grandma never said. The woman at the door didn't flinch. She studied me with the kind of stillness that makes your skin crawl, as if she was trying to decide whether I was real or a ghost she had spent years trying to forget. The smell of lilacs grew stronger, almost suffocating. I wanted to say her name, but it stuck in my throat like a secret I wasn't supposed to speak. Finally, she broke the silence. You shouldn't have come. Her voice was low, steady. I could hear the years of hiding, of decades, of regret, of sleepless nights woven into every syllable. I wanted to ask her everything, who she was, who I was, but all that came out was why she didn't answer. She stepped aside and gestured for me to enter. The inside of the house felt eerily familiar. The same lace curtain, the same crucifix above the doorway, even the faint ticking of was
another
like
stepping into a
that
parallel
sounded
version
almost
of the
identical
home I'd left
to the
behind.
one in Grandma's
We sat
hallway.
across from each other in her kitchen, the air thick with things unsaid. She poured tea into two chipped cups, but didn't drink. Her hands trembled slightly as she finally whispered. She promised she'd never tell you. Why? I repeated. This time my voice cracked. Why would you both lie to me? She looked at me then, really looked. Because some truths don't save people, she said softly. They destroy them. I stared at her, searching for a trace of the woman in the photograph. And then I saw it, the same curve of the lips, the same dimple on the left cheek. My chest tightened. You're Evelyn, she nodded. And you're the reason I swore to disappear. Her words cut through me like glass. Disappear. She turned away, wiping her eyes. I told her your grandmother thought she was protecting you. Not after what I did. What did you do? She hesitated. And in that pause, I could hear the years she had spent trying not to remember. When I was your age, she began, I made a choice. One that ruined everything. Her voice grew quieter. There was a man. He wasn't who he said he was. He promised me a life, freedom, love, everything I thought I'd never have. But when your grandfather found out, he gave me one choice. Leave and never come back, or watch him destroy the man I loved. I could barely breathe. So you left. I left, she whispered, and I made her promise never to tell you who I was, because if you knew, you'd hate me. Tears blurred my vision. You left me, I said, my voice shaking. You left me without even saying goodbye. I was 17. I didn't just leave you. Know how to be a mother. Everything. how to face what I'd done. I thought she could raise you better than I ever could, but I never stopped watching. Every birthday, every photograph she sent, I saw it all. I stood up, pacing, my heart pounding. And now you want what? Forgiveness. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket and slid something across the table. And I want you to promise me rusted key no matter what you find there. She said, you'll never speak you to go to the attic. I froze, staring at the key. Why? Her voice broke. Because the truth doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to you. And it will cost you everything if you say it out loud. I remember standing there, my hands shaking, the key cold and heavy against my palm. She looked at me with those haunted eyes and said the same words my grandmother had whispered years ago. Never repeat what you're about to learn. And just like that, the circle closed. The next morning, I found myself standing at the foot of the old attic stair, heart racing, key in hand. I had no idea that what waited behind that door would rewrite everything, not just my past, but my future. The attic doors groaned under like a mouth as I climbed, that had been each waiting step years heavier than the last. I could still feel the cold imprint of Evelyn's key pressing against my skin, the metal biting into my palm, as if it wanted to warn me. Outside, thunder rolled over the valley, and the smell of rain crept through the cracks of the old house. When I reached the top, I hesitated. My breath came in short bursts, every inhale shot. I slid the key and slowly it resisted. The keyhole rusted with then time, gave way with a tired click. The sound was too loud, like a confession breaking free. The moment I pushed the door open, a rush of stale air met me, thick with dust and something else, something faintly metallic, like the ghost of blood long dried. The room was dark except for a sliver of gray light seeping through a small window. I coughed as I stepped inside, waving away the cobwebs against the walls that hung like veils, some labeled, some not. Old trunks, covered in moth-eaten blankets, sat like tombs waiting to be disturbed. And then I saw it, an old rocking chair in the corner, still moving slightly, as if someone had just stood up. For a moment, I froze. My mind raced with possibilities, maybe the wind, maybe my nerves, but deep down, I felt it. The presence, that heavy, the first few were invisible thing that fills a room, yellowed when the truth is close, a wedding dress folded neatly. I started opening boxes, but then, beneath a stack of letters tied with a crimson ribbon, I found a small wooden box. No lock, just a lid that creaked when I lifted it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, some black and white, some faded color. My grandmother, my grandfather, Evelyn, but in several of them, a man I didn't recognize, tall, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to follow me even from decades away. In one picture, he stood beside Evelyn, his arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling at something out of frame. On the back, written in my grandmother's handwriting, were the words, October 1963, the real father. The world tilted. I nearly dropped the photo. My knees gave out, and I sat on the dusty floor, clutching that small rectangle of paper like it was proof I existed, and proof I didn't all at once. My heartbeat roared in my ears. She lied. Not just Evelyn. Not just my grandmother. They both did. For years, they had built a life for me on the ashes of a lie. I tore through the box, desperate for answers, and found more letters, dozens of them. The envelopes bore to my grandmother, from Boston, all New from York, the same man, Toronto. Each one started the same way. You promised to tell her when she's old enough. The last one stopped me cold. It was dated April 1993, the week my grandmother died. It read, "If she doesn't know by now, she never will. I'll stop writing, but she deserves to know the truth, even if it kills her." The ink was smeared, as my if grandmother had received this letter right before my she called me to her room. The night she made her final confession. Suddenly, I understood everything she'd been trying to say. All the words she couldn't bring herself to speak. Evelyn wasn't the only one running from the past. My grandmother had been running too. From guilt, from betrayal, from the one man she'd never stopped loving. Lightning flashed through the window, and in that split second, I saw something glint under the rocking chair. I crawled closer, reaching into the shadow, and pulled out a small metal locket. Inside was a photograph of the same man, holding a baby wrapped in a blanket. My blanket. My throat tightened. My hands trembled as I whispered, "Who are you?" And though no one answered, I swear I felt the house breathe. Scratched when I looked the grain with something I noticed sharp. Something the truth into isn't the yours wooden to beam above the storm chair. Outside howled as if the past itself was raging to be heard. I clutched the locket to my chest and stumbled back down the stairs, every step echoing like a countdown. Evelyn was waiting at the bottom, her face pale, her eyes red, as if she already knew what I had found. "I told you not to go up there," she said. Her voice was almost a whisper, my voice breaking, but her hands were shaking violently. She looked away. The reason everything fell apart. And then she said something that made the floor disappear beneath me. "He's not just your father. He's the man your grandmother and I both loved." For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. The storm outside had quieted, but inside me, it raged louder than ever. The words Evelyn had spoken, "He's the man your grandmother," hang in the air like and smoke. I both loved. Impossible I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. My voice came out as a whisper, rough and trembling. "What do you mean, both of you?" Evelyn's eyes darted toward the window, toward the dark sky, as if she was searching for courage somewhere out there. Her fingers twisted the hem of her sweater, a small, nervous habit I'd never seen in her before. "You think love has rules. Sometimes," she said finally, "just a fire that burns where it shouldn't." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense. You were sisters." She cut me off sharply. "Half-sisters." The silence that followed was deafening. "Half-sisters." Suddenly, everything began to tilt, as though the foundation of our family had been quietly rotting for decades, and I was only now feeling it give way beneath my feet. Your grandmother's husband, as she continued, was not the man she married for love. He was the man she married for safety. The one she loved was someone else, someone she could never have. My father. I stumbled backward, my mind racing, my throat dry. You're saying that mean? Her eyes met mine, filled with a grief so raw I almost pitied her. It means he was your father too. The air left my lungs. I could hear the house creak, the rain return, faintly tapping on the roof, like a quiet applause for the horror of truth finally unveiled. I wanted to scream, to throw the locket, to burn the letters, to make the world make sense again. But all I could do was stare at Evelyn, who looked so small, so tired, as if carrying the weight of 2 lifetimes of guilt. She spoke again, her voice breaking. But when I didn't know 17, when I was a child, I found Mother, your grandmother kept him hidden from me. That's when I realized why she cried every night after dinner, why she couldn't stand to hear my father's name, because she was still in love with him. She took a shaky breath. When I turned 25, I went looking for him. I wanted to know who he really was, and I found him in Boston. He was older, frail, living alone for a moment, but he remembered I was meeting the ghost of my own life before it began. I couldn't move. I could only listen. Her words fell heavy, deliberate, like stones into a well. Evelyn continued, tears running down her wrinkled face. We met every year, in secret. I told myself it was for closure, for answers, but it wasn't. I loved him too. I was too young, too desperate that to was be the seen. Moment I stopped being myself. She paused and became her shadow. Lip. He said, I reminded him the of image her. Of that man's arm around her, and the photo flashed in my mind. She wasn't lying. So you both loved him, I said, my voice distant, hollow. And neither of you told the truth. Evelyn nodded weakly. Your grandmother swore me to silence before she died. She said the truth would destroy what little was left of this family. What's left to destroy? She didn't answer. And shocked. She just looked at us now, shoulders slumped, hands trembling. The weight of 7 decades pressed down on both of us. Then she whispered something I almost didn't hear. I didn't just keep her seat. I kept mine too. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. What secret? She looked at me, really looked at me, with an expression that was equal parts guilt and something I'd never seen before. Swollen. I thought you should but never know. There was something else behind them. But since you opened that attic door, maybe you were meant to. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellowed and fragile. My fingers shook as I took it. The handwriting was familiar, that same careful cursive as the other letters. The date at the top made my stomach drop. June 1984. The letter began simply, my birth year, to the one who carries my blood, though she'll never know it. I read the rest in silence. Every line made the world smaller, darker. The man, our father, had written about the night I was born, how Evelyn had come to him, desperate, heartbroken, saying she couldn't live with the lies anymore, how she had begged him to leave everything and run away with her. How he had refused. She doesn't know, not because the letter he didn't love her, that the child but is because mine. Of me. The words because he already knew filled about my eyes. My throat closed, my heart raced, and I could barely breathe. I looked up at Evelyn, who was crying now silently. You knew, I whispered. All these years, you knew I was. Yes, her voice cracked. I knew. You were my sister's child by blood, but mine by truth. The
Everything I had
I
ever
gripped
believed
the edge
about
of the
my
table
life to steady
my
myself.
family, my name, my story, shattered like glass. Outside, thunder rolled again, far away this time, as if even the sky had grown tired of our secrets. For the first time, Evelyn reached for me. Her hand was cold, trembling, but when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of every unsaid word between us. I didn't tell you to hurt you. The storm finally died because lies rot the soul, but its echoes have been rotting for far too long. Of the house I felt didn't alive sleep that night, whispering old words I didn't want to hear. The truth had carved me open, every secret, every lie, bleeding into the next. I sat on the edge of the bed, the letter still clutched in my hands, its corners soft from my grip. I read it again and again until the words stopped making sense. She sat at the kitchen until they became nothing a half-empty cup of when coffee morning in front of her. Evelyn was staring already at the wall as though waiting for something or someone to appear. Her eyes were red, her hair a mess, and there was an exhaustion in her that went deeper than sleeplessness. You didn't rest, I said quietly. She shook her head. I couldn't. Not after all this. She gestured for me to sit. We have to talk, and you
The
have
letter
to listen.
lay between
This
us like
isn't
a wound
easy for me.
that wouldn't close.
I sat down across
I've carried
from
guilt
her for 50 years, she began. But it wasn't just the lies that kept me awake. It was what I did after she died. I frowned. What do you mean? Evelyn looked up, her voice trembling. When your grandmother passed, she left something behind, something I promised to protect. But it's not mine anymore. It's yours. She reached into a small tin box on the counter and pulled out a folded document sealed in wax, brittle with age. My pulse quickened as she slid it toward me. Open it, she said. Inside was an old property deed, the name on it almost fading, but still visible, Clara Whitmore, my grandmother. Below it, another signature, one I recognized instantly from the letter. Daniel Crow. It was bought in both their names. Confused. He left it this to house. Evelyn nodded she found slowly. Out he had not a daughter just with the house, the she land beneath everything. She wanted to ensure I'd never have a claim to it, and she did. She made it legally untouchable until the truth was confessed to the rightful heir. I felt my stomach twist. Me? She nodded again. Yes. The only way this property could ever pass to the next generation was my if whole I told you who you really thought of this house. I stared at nothing document, more than the old my hands trembling, home, a relic of the past. Now it was a secret inheritance, one that had been waiting for decades to surface. I don't care about the house, I whispered. I just want to understand. Evelyn leaned closer, her voice suddenly sharper, urgent. You will. But there's more. She hesitated, glancing toward the hallway. After as if afraid, funeral, the walls themselves were listening. Something she left for him, for Daniel. A confession. I didn't give it to him. I kept it hidden. Why? Her lips trembled. Because it would have destroyed him. and because it confessed something even darker, I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat. What did it say? She closed her eyes, tears escaping down her cheeks. It said that the fire in 1965, the one that killed her husband, defined my grandmother's life, that she'd never spoken about in detail. Can you feel it? The truth is heavier than you imagine, isn't it? Every secret uncovered changed the way we see the people we love and ourselves. Don't scroll away. Now, this is the moment when the story takes its darkest turn. If your heart is racing, give this video a like. Leave a comment about the part that shocked you most. And make sure you're subscribed so you'll see how the family's secrets finally unfold. Trust me, the ending is worth it. She wrote that she said it. Evelyn continued, her voice barely a whisper. She said she did it to end the pain, that she couldn't bear living in that lie anymore. But he wasn't supposed to die. My
Only
body
the life
she built
She
on
told me
deception.
this.
I pressed
Evelyn
my
said
hand to my mouth the night before she passed, and she made me promise never to reveal it, not until the family had someone strong enough to face it. I think she meant you. I felt the room spinning, my breath shallow. Why me? I didn't ask for any of this. Because you are the end of it, she said. Every generation before us was poisoned by silence. You can stop it. Stop something. I pushed back that's from the already table, shaking my head. Evelyn's expression hardened. Yes, you can, but it will cost you. There was something in her tone that made my stomach drop. What are you asking me to do? She took a deep breath and reached across the table, gripping my hand with surprising strength. I need you to burn the letter. I stared at her, horrified. What? No, that's the only proof of
And
what
if it
happened
ever
of
leaves
who
this
I am.
house,
It will ruin you, she said.
People will dig,
her voice
accuse,
trembling.
destroy.
The world loves secrets, but it loves tearing them apart even more. If you want peace, you must bury the truth with me. I pulled my hand away. You're asking me to lie, to erase everything. I'm asking you to survive, she said softly. It's what your grandmother wanted for me. And what I want for you. The thought
Tears
of
welled in
destroying
my
the
eyes.
only tangible connection
look
at her to my real past made my chest ache. Yet I saw the desperation in her eyes, the way her lips trembled with fear, not for herself, but for me. Promise me, she whispered. Promise me you'll let the fire die this time. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, the letter heavy in my hands, the weight of generations pressing down on my shoulders. And then I realized she wasn't asking
Evelyn was
for
crying
herself.
silently.
She was asking,
her face pale,
because she didn't
breath
have much
shallow.
time left. Her hands trembled as she reached across the table once more. One last thing, she whispered. When it's done, take me to the orchard. That's where your grandmother buried the rest of her letters. You'll know what to do. The kitchen clock ticked, slow and heavy. I'll take you, I said, my voice cracking. She smiled faintly, whispering secrets through their leaves. The wind began to rise again. That had always felt so peaceful now felt like a graveyard of truth. As I watched her sit there, frail but resolute, I realized the request wasn't just impossible. It was the only way out. and the only way to lose everything all over again. The orchard had always been my favorite place on the property when I was a child, but that
I
morning,
thought it was magical.
when I pushed open the warped
where
back
the
door
sunlight seemed
and
softer,
stepped into the cool
the air
autumn
sweeter.
air, it felt haunted. The trees were bare now, their branches stretching like bone toward a colorless sky. The ground was damp with last night's rain, and every step I took seemed to echo louder than it should have. Evelyn walked slowly beside me, her breath coming out in faint clouds. She carried the old tin box pressed against her chest.
She braided
It's
flowers
strange,
into my
she
hair
said quietly,
and tell me
I
to
used
never
to play
dig near
here
the
with
old
her.
oak.
I didn't know she meant it literally. I glanced at her. You said the letters are buried here. She nodded. Under that tree, she pointed to the gnarled oak that stood at the edge of the orchard, its roots like the veins of something ancient and unwilling to let go. We reached it in silence. The earth smelled of rot and rain. Evelyn handed me a small
I
shovel
didn't want to
she
face.
brought, her hands trembling. It's your turn now, she said softly. I knelt and began to dig. The soil was heavy and cold, clinging to my fingers, as if it didn't want to release what lay beneath. For a while, all I heard was the scrape of metal against earth, until I hit something solid. It was a small wooden box, no bigger than a showbox. The wood was darkened with rusted hinges. The smell of old ash faint as I lifted undeniable
it
open. Evelyn whispered. I pried it open carefully. Inside were several letters, wrapped in faded blue ribbon, and beneath them a silver lighter engraved with 2 initials, C.W. Clara Whitmore, my grandmother. My hands trembled as I untied the ribbon and unfolded the top letter. The handwriting was the same delicate cursive I'd seen before, but this time the words were colder, more deliberate, as if written with trembling hands and a racing heart. To the man who ruined and redeemed me in equal measure, I can't carry this weight anymore. I thought I could live with what we did, but every breath feels like a confession waiting to be heard. He suspects. He knows I'm not the woman he married. And if he ever finds out, it won't just be my life that burns. It'll be hers too. So I'll end it before he does. I'll end the lie. I looked up at Evelyn. She was pale, tears glistening in her eyes. She really did it, I whispered. She set the fire. Evelyn nodded slowly. But you need to read the last letter. I reached for the one at the bottom. It was dated August 1965. The flames had started. Of the fire. I can hear him shouting my name. As if didn't water mean to hurt or tears had touched it. I didn't. I only wanted the house to burn, to destroy what was left of us. But he went back inside. He said he couldn't leave without the truth. He wanted to know if the child was his. I told him no, but it was too late. He wouldn't believe me. He said he'd take her from me. I saw the fire reach the curtains. The words swam before my eyes. I heard him scream. She lied to him. Reading. I murmured. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. To protect me, if anyone ever finds this, the letter continued. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her the fire wasn't meant for him. It was meant for me. And if she ever has a daughter of her own, tell her to forgive us both. I folded the letter with trembling fingers. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Evelyn the orchard said, was silent. Now you see why for the faint rustle of wind. She wasn't a monster. Leaves. She was just broken. I nodded slowly, and she tried to bury it. Literally. Evelyn's eyes glistened. She believed fire could erase shame, but it only leaves smoke, and that always finds a way to rise. She reached for the lighter, her frail fingers tracing the initials. It's yours now, she said. Her story, I stared at the object, her curse, its metal what you cold against my palm. That's up my to reflection you. Stared back at me, warped and ghostly. The wind shifted, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke, or maybe that was just my imagination. I closed the box again. We should go inside, I said. Evelyn nodded, but she didn't move right away. Her eyes lingered on the tree, the ground, the sky, as if saying goodbye to something that invisible. Night, when she finally turned toward the house, she seemed smaller her than steps ever, were slower her than breath before. Shallow, her skin pale as linen. On the nightstand sat the lighter and the letters, side by side. Did you ever love her? I asked quietly. Evelyn smiled faintly, more than she ever knew, even after what she did, especially after. Her eyes drifted toward the window. You should rest now, I whispered, but she shook her head. Voice was weak. There's but one last thing still you carried to that hear. Haunting weight. I leaned closer. That had filled the house since the beginning. The fire didn't just take him. It took someone else, too. I froze. What do you mean? Her eyes filled with tears. A baby. My blood ran cold. She closed her eyes. Clara was pregnant again. She never told anyone. That night, when the fire started, she ran back inside to save something. But someone. By the time I found her outside, she was screaming a name I'd never heard before. She paused, her voice breaking. She called it Anna. The name hit me like a blow. For years, I'd had recurring dreams of someone whispering that name in my ear, always before I woke in a cold sweat. She buried that secret too, Evelyn said, her voice now a whisper. And maybe that's why she wanted me to tell you. Because you were Evelyn, never meant to be I the whispered, last. Grabbing her hand. Slowed. Don't her go. Eyes began she smiled to close. Weakly. You'll know what to do when you find her. I didn't understand what she meant, but before I could ask, her hand went limp in mine. The clock in the hallway struck midnight. The wind outside howled again, and for the first time, I heard it clearly. A faint voice carried through the tree, whispering that same name, Anna. Every floorboard seemed Evelyn's to echo her absence. The house felt hollow, different, too quiet, stripped still. Bare by the wind. It stood like a graveyard of whispers. I buried her ashes beneath the oak tree, next to the wooden box, just as she'd asked. And though I tried to tell myself it was over, that the past was finally buried with her, I knew it wasn't. That night, sleep refused to come. The firelight flickered across the walls, and every shadow looked like her silhouette sitting in that chair again, waiting to confess one last thing. I couldn't stop thinking about the name Anna, the way Evelyn had said it, with both pain and tenderness, lingered in my mind like a melody. I couldn't forget. I went through her things the next morning. The drawers were full of old scarves, lace handkerchiefs, and photographs at the bottom that had long since lost beneath their color. A false panel. I found a small wooden chest I'd never seen before. It was locked, but the key was taped underneath. Inside was a collection of birth certificate, baptism record, and faded letters tied together with red string. The first one I opened was dated 1965, the year of the fire. It was a birth certificate. My hands shook as I read the Daniel Crow, and I froze. It was real, July 10th, and had existed, but below the mother's name was Clara Whitmore. Note, someone had added, presumed deceased in house fire, August 1965. I felt my breath hitch. Presumed, not confirmed. A thought sparked in my mind, wild, impossible, but too strong to ignore. What if Anna hadn't died? What if someone had taken her there from were the hospital fire? Records. I rummaged deeper old telegrams through the chest, and at the bottom, a folded letter addressed to Evelyn, written in my grandmother's hand. If she lives, keep her away from this house, away from me. She must never know who she is. It's the only way to keep her safe. My heart pounded. Keep her safe from what? I whispered aloud. I turned the letter over. There was another note written in Evelyn's handwriting. I felt the blood drain from my face. Maine. She didn't Evelyn die. Had they took her to Maine. That her name was changed briefly in the 1970s. A quiet seaside town, she'd said, to start over. I grabbed my laptop and searched the town name printed at the bottom of one of the letters. Bar Harbor, Maine. Scrolling through old archives, I typed Anna Crow, nothing. Anna Whitmore, nothing. Then I tried a newspaper with the year she would have been born. That's when I saw titled, Local Woman Rescues Baby from Fire, Disappears Months Later. The woman's name, Evelyn Crow. My heart stopped. I clicked the image. There she was, younger, smiling faintly, holding a baby in her arms. The caption read, Evelyn Crow with infant daughter, Anna, after the tragic fire on Harbor Street. Daughter. I she had no children. My at voice least, trembling. That's her daughter. Everyone it believed. Didn't make sense. I scrolled Evelyn had down. Never married. The article continued. Crow, originally from Massachusetts, relocated to Maine in 1972. After the fire, she vanished, leaving behind only a silver locket engraved CW and a note that read, Forgive me. The same locket I'd found in the attic. The room seemed to tilt. She hadn't buried her. She'd taken my her, palms raised her, protected her, to breathe. But if Evelyn had taken the Anna in 1965, Evelyn had found Anna, and I was born in 1984. My stomach twisted. The math was wrong. Unless I wasn't who I thought I was. I pulled out my birth certificate, the one I'd always known. June 3rd, 1984. The mother's name, Evelyn Crow. No father my hands listed. Began to the shake edges of the truth as began to glow to myself. Faint, terrifying, child, inevitable. But that Evelyn hadn't raised that meant Anna my grandmother was both my great-grandmother her and my mother's mother. Evelyn wasn't my aunt. She was my grandmother, and the woman I'd called Grandma Clara all my life. She was my great-grandmother, The one who'd tried to destroy the truth before it destroyed us. And the man in the letters, Daniel, he wasn't
sick.
just my ancestor. He was my bloodline's ghost. The fire that never went out. Evelyn had known the truth. She'd protected me from it my whole life. But now, she'd made sure I would find it. And beneath the fear, beneath the grief, something else began to burn inside me. Not anger, but clarity. Every Sunday, every story, every silence in that house had been a ritual of protection. Something
The secrets
tangible,
weren't buried
something
final.
to hide the truth.
That night,
they were buried
I went
to
back
shield me
to the
from
orchard.
it. Still,
The moon was
I
high,
needed proof, pale against the black sky. The oak tree cast a long shadow over the ground where I'd buried Evelyn's ashes. I dug again, deeper this time, until my fingers brushed against something hard. Another box, smaller, wrapped in cloth. Inside was a stack of photographs, black and white, curled at the edges. In one of them, a young woman, maybe in her 20s, stood by a harbor, holding a baby wrapped in a white blanket. The woman had my eyes dot my smile. On the back of the photo, in fading ink, were 3 words, for when she's ready. I sat there under the moonlight, the photo trembling in my hand, and for the first time, I understood what Evelyn had meant when she said you'll know what to do. And
when
now
you
that
find
I
her.
had,
It wasn't
I
about
realized
finding
something
someone
even darker.
else.
It was
If
about
this truth
finding
had
myself.
survived
For 6. Maybe it wasn't done yet. Maybe something or someone was still keeping watch. Because just as I stood to leave, I saw a light flicker in the attic window. A faint, warm glow. And in its reflection, I could swear I saw her. Not Evelyn, not Clara, but a young woman with my face. The power had been cut standing there silently. I'd unplugged everything myself. The light in the attic shouldn't have been there. It was a dim amber glow trembling behind the cracked glass, flickering as if it breathed. I froze beneath the oak tree, mud still clinging to my hands. The photo of the woman, my mother, pressed against my chest. The wind had died, the night holding its breath. Every instinct screamed, don't go back in that house, steps but slowly. Curiosity, each creak or maybe destiny, like a warning, whispered the door louder. Was ajar. I hadn't left it that way. Inside, the air felt heavier, charged, like before a thunderstorm. The smell of smoke lingered faintly, not from the fire pit outside, but something older, something trapped in the walls. Hello, my voice cracked. Is someone there? No answer. Only the faint hum of silence. The stairs groaned under my weight in the as beam. I climbed, like ghosts the flash of stories never told. In my hand. The closer I got to the attic door, the stronger the scent became. Not just smoke, but something floral beneath it. Jasmine, Evelyn's perfume. The door was half open, the same as the night she died, the same as the night I'd first found the locket. I pushed it slowly. The light wasn't from a lamp. It was a lantern, old, glass and cracked. Beside it, flame standing near the window, though there was no a figure, fuel. A woman. Her hair was silver, her dress pale blue, the same color as in the photograph I'd found under the oak tree. She wasn't translucent, not quite. But the light passed through her edges like smoke refusing to take full form. She turned toward me, and I felt my heart seize. It was her, the woman from the photo, the one who had my face, but no sound came. Still, already I felt what she didn't saying, answer, like a not whisper with inside my chest instead of my ears. You weren't supposed to find me. I stepped closer, trembling. I had to. You're my mother. Her eyes, the same shade of hazel as mine, softened, then filled with sorrow. Evelyn promised me you'd never know. She told me to find you. My voice cracked. She said and as expression changed, the air rippled as slightly, if she were remembering the lantern flame flared. She broke the circle. What circle? The fire wasn't an axe. I swallowed hard. I know. I saw the letters. Daniel Crow. He didn't start it. I blinked. What? Clara did. The words weren't heard, but they slammed into me like thunder. My knees nearly gave way. Grandma Clara, I stammered. No, my breath was quickened. A victim, a curse. Anna nodded slowly. To cleanse every woman in our line. She believes what our blood carried it. We carry memory, not of our lives, but of those before us. Evelyn hid it. I tried to run from it, and Clara, she tried to burn it out of existence. I felt the chill run up my spine, the fire, the whispers, the way Evelyn always knew when something was about to happen. Storms, deaths. No, even my child. It didn't skip you. Evelyn said it skipped me. I felt my knees go weak. Anna's eyes filled with tears seemed to sway. Why now? Because I can't protect you anymore. The fire never ended. It just changed shape. What do you mean? Before she could answer, the lantern flickered violently, the flame bending sideways, as if pulled by something unseen. A sound echoed from below, the front door slamming. Someone else was in the house. Her voice now Anna's faint. Form began to waver, go to light the orchard, spilling from her under eyes. The oak's roots. The truth is waiting. And whatever happens, the rest was drowned by a deafening bang. The attic door flew open, hitting the wall, and there, standing in the doorway, was a figure in black, a tall man, face hidden beneath a hood, holding something metallic that glinted in the lantern light. For a moment, and then everything from behind stopped. Me, the flame, Anna's voice, the air, and even time for the first time, the man screamed, took one step forward. The lantern shattered. The world exploded into fire and shadow. I ran. The attic behind me erupted in chaos, wood splintering, the wind howling, as if the house itself had turned against me. My boots sank into the wet earth of the orchard, mud sucking at every step. The photo of Anna in my hand, the man in black followed, slipped between his my fingers, pounding the and ground fell like into thunder. The leaves. My chest but heaved, I didn't lungs stop. Burning. I didn't the dare. Oak tree loomed ahead, its branches like claws against the moonlit sky. I reached it, barely noticing the ache in my limbs, the sting of rain on my skin. I sank to my knees and began digging frantically. The earth gave way under my fingers, soft, damp, waiting. Then my hands brushed something solid. I pulled it out and ripped the ribbon away. The same box opening Evelyn had buried the all those letters in, photographs, and the locket. A flash of silver caught my eye, the engraved lighter, untouched by time. I didn't pause. I spread the letters across the ground, sorting, reading, piecing together the timeline. Clara, the fire, Daniel, Evelyn, Anna, and me, every secret connected, every life twisted. He was
into
tall,
a knot of betrayal,
imposing, love,
but the moment
and
his
survival.
eyes fell on
and
the
then
locket
I
around my
understood.
neck,
The
he
man in
froze.
black reached
Recognition,
the orchard.
not fear.
Then a voice, familiar, yet colder than anything I'd heard before, echoed from under the oak tree. You shouldn't have come here. It wasn't him. It was a whisper from the roots. The earth shifted, and from beneath the oak, a faint glow emerged. Not fire, but something older. I felt it in my chest, vibrating, pulsing, as if the ground itself were alive with the memories of every woman who had suffered in our line. Anna. Evelyn. Clara. Every secret, every lie, every act of protection encoded in the soil. The man lunged, but before he could reach me, a gust of wind slammed into him. He stumbled, the lantern from the attic toppling over, spilling molten
Anna's
light
figure,
that seemed to
luminous,
freeze
her
midair.
face stern,
And then I
but
saw
protective,
emerging from the glow beneath the oak roots. Leave her, she said. The words weren't sound, but intention, a force that pressed him backward, his feet failing to hold him. I trembled, clutching the letters. Who are you really? I whispered. I am the truth you were meant to find, she replied. I am every secret they tried to bury. And now the man screamed, not a sound of anger, but of defeat, as if the weight of generations pressed on him. The wind swallowed him, and then, as suddenly as it came, the orchard was silent again. Anna reached down, touching my hand, and the warmth from her figure spread into me. Memories not my own of laughter, fear, love, and sorrow surged through me. I saw the fire not as destruction. The curse never touched
but
you,
as a warning,
she said.
I saw
because
Clara's
you were
desperation,
always meant to carry
Evelyn's
the truth,
courage,
to
and
set
Anna's
us free.
survival.
The letters, the locket, the lighter, everything burned in a soft, gentle flame that rose from the root, illuminating the orchard, yet leaving them untouched. I felt the house behind me, the storm, the orchard, all settle into calm. When the light faded, she was gone. But the presence
there
remained,
for
hours, a reassurance,
letting the
rain
a
soak
promise.
me, letting the history of my bloodline sink in. By dawn, I had a decision. I would preserve the letters, the photos, the locket, not to hide them, not to bury them again, but to understand and honor them. The past could no longer dictate the future, and the cycle of silence was broken. I walked back to the house. For the first time
I went
in
to
decades,
Evelyn's
room. It felt
sat
empty,
by her bed,
not haunted, and whispered
not
a promise.
waiting,
I
but
will
silent.
tell them. I will honor you, and I will never let the fire forget your courage. Outside, the orchard stirred gently in the morning breeze. The oak stood tall, its roots deep, holding generations of secrets. But now, for the first time, it also held peace. And as I left the house, I realized something essential. To
The
remind
fire
us
had
never been
that
meant
even
to
in the
destroy.
darkest,
It had been
most
meant to illuminate corners
to
of
guide
family and fate. Truth has a way of surviving through love, through courage, through those brave enough to face it. I carried that lesson with me as I stepped into the new day, the sun breaking through the clouds, knowing that finally I was free. And now the story has ended, but the questions remain. What would you do if your family's past was nothing like you thought? Could you survive the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know how you would react. If this journey gave you chills, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe for more stories that dive into the hidden truths of families, love, and betrayal. The fire may be gone, but the lessons last forever. Don't miss the next story.